Welcome back, everybody. Fresh edition. Trust the Mikes. Mike Gill, Michael Kasky, Blow Maine. Sixers. Are they back? We're going to dive into that and plenty more on today's edition. We are live on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. On Twitter X at Trust the Mikes. What's going on, everybody? Sixers getting ready to play the Cavs tonight. Let's get into today's edition of Trust the Mikes. There's MKB. What's going
Mike?
on, my brother? How are you?
Good, man. How you feeling?
Feeling all right. January Sixers have given us some reason to discuss. Have the Sixers turned the corner? Clutch VJ, Embiid MVP form, roster rotations. A lot to discuss. Eagles off the board. Sixers soothing the soul, man. Everybody out there, if you're watching on the X platform, YouTube, hit the like button, share, subscribe, repost. If you're on the YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and we got a fresh Trust the Mics for you. Where do you want to start here? I mean, I know you wrote an article at Sporting News about the Sixers turning the corner in January, and really, we're halfway through the month, and are we starting to say, hey, this team is more contender or more,
It's a small sample size, Mike, but January has been very good to the Sixers, obviously, so far. 5-2 in the month so far. The two losses both came by 1 point in overtime games that they probably should have won. That Nuggets game where they played the G League version of the Nuggets, and the Raptors game, the first one of the two back-to-backs where they lost in overtime. Both of those probably could have been wins. But to me, I mean, the most impressive thing with the Sixers is they've been playing good ball on both ends of the floor in January, Mike. Top 5 in offensive rating, top 5 in defensive rating, top 5 in overall net rating. Like, they've just been playing pretty balanced basketball to start 2026. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but like you said, I think they're trending in the right direction, and the vibes certainly feel good so far in 2026 for the Sixers.
Right, and listen, that loss to Denver, it's so infuriating, but, you know, those things happen in the NBA. I think the same night, Oklahoma City got bombed on its home court by Charlotte. We just saw Cleveland lose to Utah the other night, which is, you know, just not a good Utah team. So these things happen throughout the course of the season, and, you know, Jimmy Lynam says it all the time. The worst game to play is that first game after the long road trip. So they overlook the Nuggets. They lose. But I thought the true mark was the next game. They played Washington, and they didn't let their guard down against Washington. They blew them out, and then they bounced back with another win after that. But there's a lot of reasons for why they're playing well. There's a lot of reasons why maybe they've turned the corner, and maybe we can have trust in them. Is for the first time in, like, our lifetime, they are healthy.
Right.
And you can see what they can be, and it's like this, is it fool's gold? Should we buy in? You never know with this team. But a healthy Sixers team is what?
Competitive, Mike. I think competitive is the perfect word. I mean, there's reason to give pause. If you look at the games they've won so far this month, it's not like they've been playing the toughest schedule in the NBA, obviously, to start this year so far. Dallas, Washington, Orlando, couple games against Toronto, not like terrible teams, but we're not talking about the top contenders. So I think there's still, something to be said for the quality of opponent, but they're competitive, Mike. They're in every game pretty much outside of that Oklahoma City game a couple weeks back at the end of December. But, every game they play in is close. They're competitive. They're fun to watch. They're entertaining. And like you said, the fact that they're finally now healthy in what seems like the first time in literally years. I mean, the injury report for tonight against Cleveland looks very good. Embiid is probable. There's no lingering injuries. Obviously, small stuff always pops up in the season here and there, but right now there's nobody dealing with like a lingering thing that's going to keep them out for an extended period of time. Oubre's back. Watford's back. They have the depth. So it's going to be really interesting to see moving forward, like obviously if they can stay healthy and if they can start to get some chemistry. I think early in the season they struggled with a lack of chemistry with guys in and out of the lineup, Paul George in and out, Joel in and out, other guys on the sideline. Now that Embiid's been able to play more consistently, play more minutes, more games, same with Paul George, I think you're starting to see a little bit of cohesion between the guys, and that's translating to win. So obviously they'll need to keep that going. But I think that, as long as they can stay healthy like they have been, they're a team that could potentially be competitive in the Eastern Conference.
Well, a couple things. Sunday night, not a lot of people saw it because of the Eagles game. That's the conversation we were having maybe a month ago on the pod. Are the Sixers better without Joel? I think you saw your answer on Sunday night when they didn't have Joel and Paul George. They should have won that game.
Yeah,
but they end up losing, and Toronto was shorthanded as well on Sunday night. But both teams played the next night. Joel and Paul George are out, and they smacked that team. The night before, I think it shows the growth of the team to be able to compete without Joel, but also how much they need Joel to be really the best version of what they want to be.
Yeah, and in fairness, Mike, like we had that conversation. We were, far from the only people on Sixers Twitter questioning if we had already seen, the best of Joel at this point, if he was, hurting the team by not being available, and when he was out there not being his full self. We weren't the only people saying that, and that's what it looked like at the time, Mike. But in, credit to Joel, and thankfully he looks much better, like a much different player than he did at the beginning of the year. The fluidity, the movement, the confidence in his body, and just like the general joy that he brings to the court. I think that's usually a pretty good barometer to tell like how Joel is feeling on any given, stretch of time. And I think earlier in the season, I mean, last year was such a joyless slog for the entire team, Mike, like everyone involved. Like you've said it multiple times. It might have been the worst year in Sixers history last year. I know you've been on record saying that multiple times. And I think that kind of cloud hung over the team a little bit coming into the season. And with Joel being limited to start, missing a lot of games, not being able to play a lot, not feeling like his old self, I think he was down in the dumps a little bit in the past, like 3, 4, 5 weeks. Well, his availability has ticked up and his production has ticked up. I feel like his mood is also ticked up. He seems more like jovial. He's a little bit more talkative in the locker room. He's more animated on the court. You see the patent and crotch chop getting pulled out more after baskets. He's talking a little bit more trash. And to me, that's like the barometer for Joel Embiid. Like when you see that out on the court, you know that he's feeling pretty good with his body. He's feeling confident with his game. And that's a great sign for the Sixers, Mike, because we didn't know that we would see that Joel Embiid ever again, necessarily. And the fact that he's back kind of changes the trajectory for the Sixers this season, if he can stay healthy.
Well, let's ask that then. You've seen him in person a few times. I mean, like the evolution of where he was to where he is now. Do you see a different guy? Do we believe he's back? Do we kind of let our guard down and say this is, MVP level Joel? Is he a lesser version of that guy? I mean, what is he?
I think he's a step down from the MVP version, Mike. Not to say that he can't fully get back there. I do think that the cumulative knee issues have sapped a little bit of the explosion that he had during that MVP run, like the year he won, the year before, and obviously how well he was playing the year after before he ended up getting hurt. Like, I don't see quite the same explosion, but I do see a lot of like the defensive fluidity that we worried about earlier in the season that clearly wasn't there. He looked like, a stick in the mud for, a lot of those games early on defense. He looks a lot better. And you and I have both said the offense is great, but where they really need him is on the defensive end of the floor, rim protection, to be a deterrent, to get defensive rebounds. And I think he's looked better in that realm recently, much more so compared to earlier in the season. The offense is always going to be there for him, even if he's not dunking on dudes. The mid-range, the three-point, the spot up, the step back, like all of that is in his bag, and we're seeing him, dip into that on a nightly basis.
Well, the fact that he was able to go down the paint and throw down a dunk like he did the other night, it's the fact that he's now starting to trust.
Exactly.
He's starting to trust his body.
Yeah, 100%. And it took a while, Mike. I think it took a good month or two this season for him to get the confidence. Like you would see earlier in the season, every time he would go down, he'd be checking the knee, he'd be grimacing. Like he didn't look fully comfortable, and it just looks like he's more fluid and more comfortable out there.
Well, and listen, defensively, I still think you'd like to see a little bit more there, a little more presence, a little bit more engagement defensively. He's never been a great rebounder for his size, and they got to figure that out. That is something that I think they got to try to find the right complement to play with him who will clean the glass so that he doesn't have to be this maven on the rebounding. As much as you say, the guy's 7'2", why can't he be a rebounding machine? It's just not who he is, and you got to move past it. But that means you got to find the right guy to be that guy with him. And let's get into our next topic of conversation. Is that guy here? Is it Barlow? Is it Oubre? You know, the guy who's the other guy, the non-offensive starter on this team. I feel like that guy has to be a guy who's just willing to grab boards and do the dirty stuff. Is it Barlow? Is it Oubre?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And I mean, obviously that's something that we've discussed here, and it's a matter of early in the season when Oubre was here, he was starting. He goes out for a while. Barlow kind of slides into that starting spot, and I think we've both been impressed with, what we've seen from Barlow so far this season. So at this point, I think the move is you stick with Barlow in that starting five, Mike, for pretty much exactly the reasons you just said. I mean, he provides you with excuse me, some of that like ancillary rebounding to help Joel to take a little bit of the load off of his plate. And earlier in the season, I think floor spacing was a question with the Sixers team because you weren't sure exactly what sort of floor spacing you were going to get from VJ Edgecombe. So having Kelly Oubre in that starting lineup could help to, spread the floor around Joel and Maxey. But now when you see what you've gotten from VJ Edgecombe as a floor spacer, and you have Maxey shooting, you have Paul George in that starting five, who's also a floor spacer. You can afford, I think, to have that fourth starting spot go to a guy who's not necessarily, a threat from long distance, but does the other stuff like the rebounding, like the finishing around the rim, like the transition. Like Barlow brings a lot of the intangibles that people like to talk about to the floor. I think he complements Joel, really well in that role that he has. The rebounds could go up. He's averaging like 5 and change on the season. I think he could be a little bit more aggressive on the glass, but overall, I really like what he brings to that starting five.
I kind of agree that Barlow is probably the better because he knows he's not the scorer. Now, Oubre, I don't think is like I need the ball kind of guy, obviously, but he's a willing shooter and he can get going. But that profile is better coming off the bench.
Right.
Hey, Barlow, you're coming out where he needs a little bit of an extra offense. You can play him. They had that lineup in the game against was it Orlando the other night where it was Drummond and Oubre. I mean, they just had a lot of long guys out there, and they just suffocated Orlando, in that – I think it was that early third quarter stretch or the mid-third quarter stretch or somewhere in there, like where you can have Drummond rebounding, but then you have Oubre's offense. You have Grimes who gives you some scoring. So it gives you a good amount of scoring coming off the bench. So I think Oubre probably on this team better suited for that role.
Yeah, no, 100%, Mike. I definitely agree. The firepower off the bench, the scoring, and the defense. Like he brings a lot to that second unit. And like I said, like earlier on, I understand why Nick Nurse might want him out there. But what we've seen from VJ Edgecombe, as you and I have talked about like multiple times on this pod, like his development makes having Oubre in that starting lineup like not necessary because Edgecombe brings the defense that Oubre would, but better. I mean, he's a better defender. And the floor spacing that Oubre would bring. We've seen Edgecombe not like hitting catch and shoot threes at an over 40% clip, like playing off ball comfortably, like all the things that you might have wanted from Oubre in that starting five, you're getting from Edgecombe. So now you can bump Oubre down to the bench and you get, some of the scoring punch, especially with a guy like Jared McCain not necessarily producing to the extent that maybe people thought or the Sixers might have hoped from him this season offensively. You get Grimes, you get Oubre. That's two like, solid guards that can play both ways off the bench. Drummond, Bona, obviously Jabari Walker's been a nice surprise for the Sixers this season. So, I mean, I think other than McCain, who obviously still has some things to work out this season, that second unit is shaping up to be, pretty solid for Philly.
Yeah, and it's like depending on the matchups, they go with either Drummond or Bona, depending on like who the other team throws. So you got that. Then you really have man for man, a guy who can step in. McCain is the one guy who really hasn't found his role yet, but Grimes can fit in with Maxey. Grimes can fit in with VJ. Then you got Oubre, who's basically taking the spot of either Barlow and or George. He can do kind of both of those things. So you do have some good roster makeup on this team. You're looking at the trade deadline, which is coming up in a couple of weeks here, and you're really thinking, where do they even tweak or look? I don't know that there's a deal really that this team needs to make. It's more like, can they just stay healthy?
Yeah, 100%, Mike. I definitely don't think there's any major like blockbuster deal or anything on the horizon. Bringing in a backup point guard might not be a terrible idea. Obviously, Kyle Lowry got a couple minutes in that Toronto game the other night to get a nice standing ovation from the Toronto crowd, but he's obviously been a non-factor. And with McCain not really being able to crack the rotation consistently and not being a huge factor, I think that second unit could potentially benefit from just like a an extra playmaker, ball handler. But at the same time, like if you're able to kind of stagger the Maxey and Edgecombe minutes and have Edgecombe running, some of the offense with the second unit as Nurse has done, throughout the season recently, it's probably something that's not like a prior or like a, urgent, but it wouldn't be a bad addition. But overall, Mike, I think you're right. And there's not even that many moves the Sixers could make unless you're talking about, moving on from a big piece like a Paul George or something like that. Like they have so much. Yeah.
Here's a question for you. Joel is now starting to play well.
Yeah.
Before we're like, you can't move him. No one would want that contract. If a team saw Joel and said, hey, he's playing pretty good, we're interested. If you're the Sixers, do you think this is going too well right now that you don't do that, or do you take an opportunity if somebody calls?
That's a good question, Mike. That's a great question. I mean, obviously, I think you answer the phone. I think you see what's out there. Joel's looked great. I don't think that necessarily means that the next 3 years of his contract are going to age super well. There's still obviously concerns. He's not getting any younger, and he's one, tweaked knee away from being on the shelf again. Unfortunately, I mean, that's obviously nobody wants that to happen, but that's the reality with Joel. So if there is a way to potentially get out from under that and kind of shift more to the Maxey Edgecombe backcourt, I think you consider it. I don't think that it's something that's going to happen. I think teams would still be hesitant to part with anything too valuable to bring him in, given the injury history and even this season. Like, yeah, he's looked great in the past 3 weeks in the availability, but I think there would still be, some hesitancy amongst teams to part with anything too worthwhile. But I would listen to offers.
That because you see that Dallas is trying to move Anthony Davis, and he's hurt now.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get out from under that deal and just like trying to figure out if anybody would want him. Maybe they shift their attention to a healthy Joel, and they're like, man, look what this guy's doing right now. I don't see it happening. And we didn't discuss this at all. It just kind of came to my mind of this guy's playing well enough. Everybody wanted to everybody's like, you got to trade him. You got to get rid of him, trade his contract. And everyone's answer was, they can't do that. Nobody wants that contract. What if somebody all of a sudden decided they did? I don't know, man.
That's a fascinating question, Mike. That might be worth a Twitter poll.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you all wanted Joel traded. What if somebody actually called for him now that he looks like he's fitting in here? And you saw what happened to them on Sunday night when he didn't play. I mean, did they have a shot to win that game against Toronto? Sure. But you can't think you're going to win a playoff series without Joel Embiid. I mean, he's scoring over a point a minute since he's really started to get back here. And, I mean, he just makes everything so much easier for Maxey. And, I mean, Edgecombe, we're going to get into his. I mean, what Edgecombe has done since we had that conversation about him and McCain has completely won me over. Not that I was like, Edgecombe stinks. It's more, I didn't think he could hit that shot consistently. And he's not – it's not like the other night I think he was 5 for 5 from 3 at one point. But it's when he's hitting these threes. I mean, that dude is like, hey, I'm 1 for 12. Give me the ball, and I'm going 2 for 12, and it's going to be a 3, and it's going to tie the game up. I mean, he's got that in him.
The clutch gene, Mike, he has it. He's built for the big moment, and you can just see it in his eyes, like in his demeanor on the court. He wants the ball in those moments, and like you said, he's already shown, which is a veteran characteristic and thing that the people preach about for, players forever. Like he has that short memory span. Like you said, he could be 1 for 13 in the first half and not having, a good game. And then it comes down to the guts of the game in a final moment, and he needs to hit a clutch shot. He has no fear. He'll step up and knock it down. We saw that in that Raptors game that you were talking about, obviously, that most people in Philly were probably drinking their sorrows away after that Eagles loss. But he hit several clutch shots in that game to, push it into overtime and give the Sixers a chance to win. And it seems like every single night we're watching him, take a step forward and make clutch shots for this team.
And was that the game? Was that the game where – which game was it where man, I can't remember. Was it the Nugget game where Maxey was going to shoot? Yeah, it was the Nugget game where Maxey went to take the final shot. They ran the same play that they beat Memphis on, but Maxey passed the ball to Edgecombe, and Edgecombe hit it. That night, they ran the same play, but Maxey kind of lost the handle.
Yeah.
And VJ had this look on his face like, dude.
Yeah.
why didn't you pass me the ball?
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm ready. Like, he is like, you just wonder, is that personality at some point going to be like, all right, dude, calm down? But I hope not.
Nah, I hope not too. And I think we talked about this last week. You pointed to it. Like, he's not afraid. He got up into Embiid's face, not in like a confrontational way, but during a game, like he walked up to Joel on the sideline and asked, like, like, what were you doing here? He's not afraid, Mike. He's ready for the moment already as a rookie. And I think that he does have that demeanor and that attitude that, like, maybe it could rub people the wrong way internally, but it's what you want from a player. Like, he just wants to win and he wants to be the guy that helps the team win. And you can see that. And I think that's going to, that trait is something that takes players years and years to develop, the killer instinct type thing. And the fact that he seems to have come in the league with it is, really impressive.
Well, and listen, we talk about roster construction and the makeup of this roster. Everything kind of fits right now. You have Joel as the guy who can hit that mid-range whenever you're like in that moment where you kind of need something. He gets to the foul line. You've got Maxey. You've got Edgecombe. So it's not like, hey, we can take the ball away from him. No, he's got his, when you have a young backcourt like they have the makings now that you can build around this young backcourt in a league that is like very guard-oriented now. You then have the wings in George and Oubre who can be complementary scorers if need be. They're both long and play good wing defense. You've got Barlow, who's a good wing defender. I don't know if I was to say what is the one thing this team lacks to make you think they can compete with Detroit or the Knicks or anybody in the East, what would that be? Or do you say, no, they have it?
I think they have it, Mike. I think it's a matter of being healthy and available. Like we were saying, like if this team, the way they're currently healthy and the way they're playing in January, if you could somehow, put them in a box or in bubble wrap or something and get them to April for a playoff series against some of these teams in the East, I have no problem saying I think the Sixers could, compete with almost any team in the conference, Mike, in a series. Obviously, the Pistons have been playing great. The Knicks have been playing great, and they would be tough matchups. But, like, if you're telling me that you get a healthy Joel Embiid that can produce at, 80% of what he gave us during his MVP year, which I feel like is kind of what we've been seeing from him in January, and a Paul George who's healthy and willing to, do all the small stuff for the Sixers outside of scoring, rebounding, hustle plays, like passing, big shot making, and the guards. Like, I think this Sixers team could compete with anyone. And you have to factor in, like, VJ Edgecombe, too. He just seems to keep getting better every month, Mike. So we're talking in January right now. By the time the playoffs roll around in April, it could have taken 2 more steps up. And I'm really excited to see his first like playoff experience, because what we're just talking about, when players have that, you really see him take that next step like in the playoffs. And I can't wait to see, where VJ can take his game to in between now and April.
You know what's cool about this season so far? It's the first season in a while where you're not like, oh, I'll only care when they get to the playoffs. Like, you're actually enjoying watching this team kind of grow together. Here's my one thing. All the way back, I think it was our first episode, we talked about what worries us. I said, I don't know where this team's going to rebound. Yeah. They had the problem against Toronto the other night. They have 4-point lead with 14 seconds left, and they can't get a freaking rebound. They just can't corral the ball, and they have to go through 2 official reviews, and they both get turned around on them. But if you just grab a rebound, I know sometimes it's like guy here, loose ball, blah, blah, blah. But just box out, clear the glass, and win the damn game. And I'm wondering where they get that just tenacious rebounding that's like, dude, we have a lead, and the other team is one and done, and that's it. If they don't make a bucket, I'm getting that board. They don't have that guy.
No, they don't have that guy, Mike. And that might be one area. I don't know who it would be. I don't have a name like off the top of my head. But a guy like that is maybe someone that you could add, prior to the deadline, like just a rebounding enforcer, a guy that could come in and do exactly what you're talking about. He probably wouldn't be super expensive on the trade market. Maybe you could make some moves around the edges and bring in a guy like that to complement the team. Because I agree, like so many games this year you're watching, and it does seem like they just struggle to end possessions by getting rebounds. And especially in like these clutch games that they seem to play almost every night, they find themselves in these close games. And in games like that, 1 or 2 offensive rebounds for the other team can make the difference in the outcome. So that is, I do agree. I would say rebounding and backup playmaking are probably the two areas, if we're nitpicking, that, this roster could probably use a little bit of an upgrade before the deadline.
Because one of the things that we talked about was where are they going to get their 3-point shooting? Well, Maxey, Edgecombe has become way better as a 3-point shooter than we ever anticipated. And then, you got George, you got Oubre, who's back now, who missed a lot of time. By the way, Wofford, he has not really been much since he's been back, and he's another guy. I like him a lot. I don't know where they're going to fit him in.
Yeah, I think his absence in a way might have hurt him a little bit, because I think on paper coming into the season, Mike, he was probably a little bit higher on the depth chart. And then, he's sidelined for such an extended period of time that you get extended run for a guy like Barlow, and you get extra minutes for a guy like Jabari Walker. And both of those guys, I don't think that the Sixers expected them to factor in so heavily into the rotation, coming into the season that they had, but they've both really taken advantage of the opportunity, which means now that Wofford's back. And in fairness, I mean, he's only played, I think he played a total of like 10 minutes in the 4 games that he's been back. It was like 5 minutes. Then he didn't play at all in the Orlando game. And in Toronto, the 2 games, he got a couple of minutes at the end, but he hasn't really even touched the court. I do expect that to, uptick a little bit as he kind of keeps working his way back. But yeah, I think his role is going to be a little bit scaled down, Mike, compared to what they maybe expected at the beginning of the year, just because you want to keep giving guys like Barlow and Walker the opportunity to play and contribute. So, I mean, it's a good problem, I guess, to have, but they certainly do have a little bit of extra depth at that power forward spot.
Yeah, definitely interested to see what the next couple of weeks. You got about 3 weeks to the trade deadline, maybe 4. I think it's like February, 9th, something like. It's right around the Super Bowl.
I think the 5th this year.
5th. Okay, so I know it's like that. Usually we're on Radio Row for the Super Bowl when this all happens, and it's like it gets lost in the sauce a little bit because of the Super Bowl. But I don't anticipate that. But if they got that kind of just junkyard dog, man, got to just grab boards and did the dirty work. I don't know who they would move though.
Do you have any names in mind, like anyone around the league that you think could come and maybe fill that role?
I have to obviously you look at the teams that are bad, that are just like, all right, I don't know. Charlotte's probably looking to move on from LaMelo. Not helpful.
Yeah, I was going to say LaMelo is like the opposite of the guy that's going to come in and crash the boards and do the dirty work.
Yeah, I know that. Michael Porter Jr., same thing. He's not a guy who wants to do the dirty work, even though Washington doesn't really have that guy. Indiana, I'm sure, is looking to peel off some pieces. You look at what? I think the Clippers are actually probably going to make the playoffs at this point. That's a team that can't tank. They have no picks. So before they looked like a team that was probably trying to dump. Now they're probably trying to get into the playoffs. They're a little healthier now. Utah, Markkanen's names always comes up, but he makes so much money. He'd be an interesting piece, though, on this team, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he would definitely be an interesting piece.
But
for
he's
sure.
not the guy that we're looking at here. We're looking at a guy who's kind of like, who I would really like in that role? And another guy, I don't know what his contract situation is. I think he's hurt right now, would be Sabonis.
Yeah.
Out in Sacramento. I mean, they're losing. They're probably looking to peel the pieces off. Sabonis is a tenacious rebounder, but he can also score.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that obviously.
I know he had a knee problem. I don't know how long he's been out for. I know he was supposed to miss a bunch of time. But Sabonis would be a guy that I would definitely like to see fill that power forward role.
That would probably take a pretty penny getting him into Philly, though.
Yeah, the question is now, if you're Daryl Morey, do you think getting a guy who can grab you 12 rebounds a game and just, and he's the kind of guy that can score 15 to 20 if you need him to, but I don't think he has to. Do you feel like you're a rebounder away from competing with Detroit in the East and getting yourself to a finals?
I doubt it, but I mean, maybe, Mike. Maybe the East, and we've talked about this from the beginning of the season. The East just feels open. Like, as good as the Pistons are, as good as the Knicks are, this year seems like it could be ripe for a team to kind of start gelling later in the season and make a run. And like we've been talking about, the Sixers are trending in the right direction right now with health, with play, with like cohesion. If that can continue, I don't see why they couldn't be a team that could potentially go on a run. And, I'm not saying they'll beat the Pistons in a series, but contend with them. And maybe you get one more guy that can come in and contribute and battle and do some of that work. Maybe that's what they need.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a name off the top of your head that would make sense, but you're looking at a situation where Sabonis makes $43 million, so you would almost have to put Paul George in that deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Sabonis, we're talking about a major, a thing that's going to shake up the entire roster. Right. And I do think he would be a great fit, but that just seems I don't see Daryl Morey pulling a big scale deal before the deadline at this point.
Yeah, and if I'm Sacramento, I don't know what flipping George for Sabonis. They both have 3 years left on the deal.
Yeah, so. And they're, it seems like they're trying to go younger and get out of some of these, veteran deals that they've handed out over the past like couple years. So it seems like, I don't know what their interest level in getting Paul George back, but a guy on that same team, not a great rebounder, but a guy like a Precious Achiuwa, like somebody like that to me could be available, obviously like a much lower rate that could come in and help you eat us some rebounds. He's not like a great career rebounder, but that's more in the vein of a guy that I would be thinking of where you probably wouldn't need to, give up too much to bring him in, kind of a low risk, low reward move. A team that would be willing to get on. Like you look at a team like the Kings, a team like the Grizzlies, some of these teams that clearly are kind of like look like they're heading for a rebuild. Look at that roster and see if they have some guys that are a little bit lower down the salary cap that might be available. I think that would probably be the best route for, Daryl Morey and the Sixers, barring, a big trade, which I personally just don't see happening at this point in the season.
I don't see that really either. I would imagine they don't do anything at the deadline, but man.
Can Daryl Morey contain himself, though? Can you imagine like Daryl Morey at the NBA trade deadline, like sitting on his hands and not being able to make a move? Like I feel like some desperation is going to pop in and be like, I have to make at least like one move.
What about Chicago? That's a team that stinks.
Yeah.
What a disappointment they've been. You got like Jalen Smith. He's a guy that I'd be interested in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Remember at the beginning of the year, Mike, when it was the Bulls and the Sixers?
Yeah, what's that?
The beginning of the year, remember, it was the Bulls and the Sixers were like the top two teams in the conference, and people were like, "Oh, the Bulls."
Yeah, I mean, he makes $9 million. Are you down on McCain enough that you'd put him in there for a guy like Smith?
I am down on McCain, Mike, and I'm not down on McCain in terms of like his skill set, but with this team, I just don't see like he's not going to be a starter, Mike. Like he's not going to start over Tyrese. He's not going to start over VJ Edgecombe in the foreseeable future. He can't start at small forward. You can't start all three of those guys. So I mean, I think Jared McCain is still going to be a fine NBA player. I'm not writing him off after a slow start to this season, but if I'm looking at this Sixers team in the short term, he's not a factor. So if we're talking about this season in a way to optimize the team to make a championship run, I don't mind selling low on Jared McCain to bring in somebody else that could contribute more in the short term. And in the long term, I just don't see a path to him unless he can really, improve as a playmaker and be like a second unit guy. I just don't see a path to him to playing a ton of minutes on the Sixers team, Mike. Like last year.
Well, here would be my question with that. If you're the Sixers, you understand, I guess, McCain just doesn't fit. But what's Grimes' future? Do you just look at McCain uses this year of just like get yourself healthy, get yourself back, Grimes moves on, you step into that role?
Yeah, I think that's a great point and a good possibility because Grimes' future, he wanted that big payday last year, obviously didn't get it, came back here on the 1 year deal. We'll probably be looking for, a pretty penny in free agency again in the summer. Probably won't get that from Philly. So, yeah, maybe if you want to keep McCain around and say, like, hey, next year when Grimes is gone, a lot of these minutes that he's getting will go to you. Sure, I could see that. But at the same time, like, if a deal popped up, I'm not saying this specific deal with Chicago, but if, something popped up where I'm Daryl Morey in the front office and Elton Brand, and I think that a move could help the Sixers this year in the short term, and the selling point would be trading Jared McCain, I don't think I would be opposed to it.
Do you think Embiid could play next to Vucevic?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
I thought that for years. I mean, Vucevic is obviously a Sixer back in the day,
Yeah.
but the floor spacing, the rebounding, like the playmaking. If you were going to do a twin tower thing, he's a guy to me that I do think could play off of Embiid pretty well.
Because he's a guy who's on a 1-year deal. If you're the Bulls, you might see what you can get for him. The problem with McCain is he doesn't make enough money, and nobody else – I don't know that you can really put enough money together to get to Vucevic's number. That's the problem with that.
That's the problem with a lot of these deals, Mike, because the Sixers, if you look at their salary sheet, it's so, top heavy. You have these 3 guys making a ton, and then you look down on a lot of the other guys are small money deals that can't really move the needle if you're trying to bring in a guy like Vucevic. So like all of these deals, if you're not including Paul George in them, which again, I don't see happening, it's hard to really make the money work for Philly.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, okay, they want to get rid of Vucevic, but they want young players in return. You're not trading, obviously, Edgecombe or Maxey, and then anybody else after that doesn't make any money. McCain only makes $4 million.
Right, and that's not moving the needle in a deal. So I mean, that's why I think, and I think you agree that the most likely situation is, maybe 1 or 2 smaller ancillary deals around like the edge of the roster, but I don't see anything where the starting 5 is altered by a move or anything like that.
Right. Well, and because player for player, I think the Bulls might say, all right, you take Vucevic, we'll take McCain. He's the younger guy. We'll take a shot that maybe comes here and starts scoring and blah, 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 blah. They probably want to get rid of Colby White. They held on to him for too long.
Yeah.
But I could say, hey, if I'm going to start dismantling stuff, let's start Vucevic as a guy. Instead of losing him in free agency, let's see if we can get a young player who showed some flashes. The problem is the money thing. There's just no match on that thing. I don't know. I have to try to think about it. We didn't really discuss this beforehand. But I'm having some fun putting the pieces together.
It's going to lead me to the ESPN trade machine after this episode. I'm going to be on there banging out some deals, seeing what works out.
Well, and like, you're looking at Indiana. Like, I'm thinking about Indiana. They just gave Siakam that deal. That's no good. Toppin was a free agent. They brought him back. But he's signed for 3 more years. Do they say, we want to get out of that deal? Do they want to hold this team together for when Halliburton comes back next year? Like, do they think they have a shot when he steps back in? Washington is just – now, they made the Trae Young deal. But you look at Washington's roster, you're thinking, what do they have that I would want? Nothing.
The Mavs might be a team to keep an eye on, Mike, not in terms of Anthony Davis, but they have a couple guys like Daniel Gafford's a decent rebounder, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. Like, they have some of the guys in the front court there, and that could become a full fire sale before the trade deadline where they're looking to, just completely tear down and rebuild around Cooper Flagg. Obviously, they're looking to move Anthony Davis. That doesn't impact the Sixers. Although it would be interesting if Anthony Davis gets traded, what the return would be, because he's not the exact same as Joel, but in terms of like big guys that are on the other side of 30 with injury histories, if Anthony Davis could get a decent package return and trade, you wonder what that could mean potentially for a Joel Embiid package.
All right. Well, for everybody out there, if you're watching this, send us some trade ideas or guys you would target. We'll try to do the same for next week's edition. We'll try to throw a couple. I don't know. What about Golden State? Where the hell do they think they are? That seems so hard to figure out.
They are in the middle of where you don't really want to be. I mean, they obviously wanted to continue to build around Steph, and it's just, the Jimmy Butler thing, I don't think has worked out super well. Draymond is probably washed.
Yep. They just don't have, they got Horford. He's probably – I don't know. Horford only plays well in green. Like, I put Horford out there. He just doesn't fit. They got no pieces that you'd be interested in. I was trying to think, do they have anything? They just don't have a guy that you're interested in. I talked about the Clippers, but I think the Clippers, since Kawhi's come back, they've played pretty well. Why would they start trading pieces? They don't want to tank.
Kawhi's looked great, Mike, and that same knee doctor as Joel. That guy has worked some miracles over the offseason, huh?
New knees.
I mean, both of them. Kawhi has looked as good as he's looked to me, and from the games that I've seen, as good as he's looked in years.
And Harden's playing well. I mean, and then everybody was talking about that they would try to possibly move, what's his name, Zubac, but he got hurt.
Yeah.
You know what? Collins is coming around for them. You watched them play the other night. He was terrible and just couldn't fit in. And now he's starting to find a role for that team as well. Because he was a guy, you're looking for guys who get traded. Not that I think he fits with the Sixers, but, Batum's out there. They got some older guys that they probably would be interested in trading. But at this point, they probably just say, let's just go for it and try to get into the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't see them doing anything too crazy.
I'm going around as the teams in my head, and I just can't find that guy that we're talking about. I just don't find it fit. Bummer. Yeah,
it's going to be tough. We knew that, though, just the way this roster is constructed. But the thing with the Sixers is that, they had so many injuries early on that now, like you said, it's just banking on the health. That's the thing. If they can stay healthy, they haven't had their full team. So it's almost like some of these guys that they added over the offseason are newer additions anyway to see how it works with the whole crew. So, bank on health and see if they can make something happen.
Last couple thoughts here. You think Oklahoma City is looking around and saying, you look at Caruso, he can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. They've been struggling shooting the three. Teams are just like, dude, Caruso, you go ahead and try to beat us. Now, they don't have Hartenstein, and that's a big loss for them. But they're 7-7 in their last 14. You wonder if they're kind of like – and Jalen Williams hasn't played well either. Maybe they're just kind of waiting for him to kind of come back. But you wonder if they're kind of like, you know what, something's not right here. Or do they just wait this out?
Yeah, I would assume. They got that good win over the Spurs last night finally after 4 games.
True.
I would be shocked if they did anything too drastic, Mike. Obviously they've played a little bit worse the past month or so. But after – the way they started the season, I think they were bound to come back to earth a little bit. It's hard to run it back after how dominant they were last year. Maybe there's a small move, but they're so rich with draft picks in the future too that I feel like they'll wait till after the season and then kind of reassess probably and maybe use some of those picks if they want to.
You a Robert Williams guy at all?
Yeah. He could potentially help.
He's a banger. That's all he does, really. He'll grab you 6-8 rebounds a night. Not a lot of minutes. Doesn't need a lot of minutes. But you would imagine come playoff time. Now, I don't know. He's not the right guy. Yeah, there's 2 different guys you're looking at. One, who can start, like a Sabonis would be, you start and play next to Embiid, or the guy who replaces Embiid for 10, 12 minutes a game, which has crushed them in the playoffs before.
Yeah.
Trying to think of one. I like that Portland team, though. They're kind of fun.
Entertaining to watch.
If you're Washington and you're watching Avdija out there, you're thinking, man, we suck all the time. We have a good player. We trade him. And why would Trae Young have any – someone's like he wants to go to Washington. What? Who wants to go there?
It was the first time in NBA history that Washington has been the preferred destination of a star player seeking a trade. Terrible. I've never seen. It's like the opposite of ring chasing. Instead of going to the team that's going to give you the best chance to win, I'm going to go to a team that has never sniffed the NBA Finals.
So bad.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
We live in a world, by the way, where Jeremy Grant's making $32 million a year, and this is the problem of trying to get stuff happening here in the NBA. But all right, everybody out there watching, hit the like, subscribe, share. We'll try to come up with some trade ideas as the trade deadline starts to creep in. But as of right now, unless there's kind of that do-it-all rebounder that can grab a board in a big moment of the game, I think the Sixers probably stay put, probably should. We'll do it again next week here. Make sure you check out Trust the Mics on all podcasting platforms, on the X platform, and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. All right, good stuff, MKB. That was fun.
Yeah, man, it got me just thinking about trades. I'm about to hop onto the trade machine right now and try to come up with some stuff.
He'll be on the trade machine. I'll be on the radio at 2:00. Join me there. Talk to you next week, man.
All right, Mike.
All right, this is Trust the Mics, everybody here. Make sure you check us out next week right here on the BFA Sports and Mike Gill Show YouTube channel and on the X platform. See ya.